Live. Okay, for those who are watching from our YouTube feed, we are live. We're just getting a little settled right now before we get started. Thank you for joining us. For all of our board members attending virtually, if you want to speak, you can we can hear you, so you can speak up, or if you prefer, you can raise your hand through the video as well. If you do reactions at the bottom of your screen, there's a spot to raise hand.
Is there a preference on your end?
No, I think we're a small enough group where if you want to speak, just speak like you would in a normal meeting, you know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think we are settled in enough where I will call this meeting to order. It is 6:05. So tonight's meeting is being held in hybrid format with both in-person and video conference attendance due to the governor's and Albany County executives' emergency declarations in connection with the ongoing winter storm. In accordance with Public Officers Law, Section 103-A3, the Board of Trustees has determined that the winter storm has impaired our ability to hold an in-person meeting, and there are time-sensitive matters on the meeting agenda. Okay, so we have 2 trustees present in person here at Washington Ave and 5 on our Zoom, and 2 trustees are absent tonight. And also our executive director, Andrea Nicolai, our assistant director, Melanie Metzger, and APL counsel, Bob Schofield, are present at the library in person. Yes. So next on our agenda is public comment. When you're ready.
Can we postpone that for a second? Because I'm going to have somebody offsite check it.
Okay, no problem. Sorry about that. All right, so for now, we will move on to our consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions about the consent agenda? If there are no questions, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Dallas.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Masinski.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Because we're some people cameras
Okay.
because Erica's.
Should we do it roll call style, one at a time? Okay. So if you heard Melanie, we're going to do roll call votes tonight, just so that it's clear when everyone votes and who voted. So I will call out the names based on how they're appearing on my Zoom, just to make it easy. So McCarthy, aye. Barnum, Dallas,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
trustee Masinsky,
Aye.
trustee Way,
Aye.
and trustee Robinson.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the finance report. Adam and Sean.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. The reports this month cover January 2023, which is 58% of the way through our 2023 fiscal year. The support and revenues category are 61% of the modified budget, mainly due to the pilot payment that was received in December. Expenditures were 56% of the modified budget. Payroll-related costs continue to trend under budget, while occupancy costs continue to trend over budget. I'll turn it over to Adam.
It's me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sean. So just a couple points from the report. So our national grid bills in January totaled just over $24,000. They totaled just under $28,000 in December 2022, and over $36,000 in January 2022. Secondly, additional expenses related to the upgrades to the large auditorium at Washington Ave were incurred in January and subsequently recorded under both grant revenue and grant expense. This work is being funded by a DASNY grant. And payroll costs continued to trend under budget due primarily to the following vacant positions: our HR director, a technology support specialist, and 10 additional civil service positions. So if there's any questions or comments on the reports or any of this information, just let us know. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the finance report or the treasurer's report? All right. Thank you, Sean and Adam.
Just
All right. Thanks, Melanie. So we will move on to agenda item number 5, committee and liaison reports. Does anyone have any events that they attended that they want to talk about this month?
Tom, this is Sarah. I attended the ALA Congressional Fly-In in Washington, DC, to talk about federal aid to libraries. And we were very warmly welcomed by our representatives. And it's hopeful that we may see some more money in federal aid to New York State.
Thank you. This isn't an event, but during the last winter storm, one of my friends' Wi-Fi went out and he was having trouble fixing it. So I said, why don't you go to the library and take out a hotspot, which he successfully did, and said he had a very good experience with the hotspot.
I attended an event at the Pine Hills branch. It was, I'm trying to remember how that was marketed. It was like essentially a night of heartbreak, tragic poetry. It was actually really exciting because a lot of university students were there. And so I would say there's easily close to 40 people. So there was an open mic associated with that too, which was really lovely. And 3 local poets from New York State as well. And then just speaking of taking friends or promoting the library, I had a friend visiting from Phoenix, Arizona. And one of the ways I showcased Albany is we went to every branch on a Saturday. So gave a grand tour of Albany's public library system last month.
Amazing.
Hi, Trustee Robinson here. I had the privilege of having Read Across Africa Week at my school, with our huge emphasis on literacy there. We did a few activities. I'd probably love to share the videos with you guys. Trying to push more participation with our community from our school to the public libraries, especially in the South End. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. If there are no others, then we will move to item 5.2, which is the Audit and Finance Committee report. So this is going back to our February 16th meeting, much of which we discussed already.
Well, yeah, we did. Just to reiterate, we went over the draft budget with Executive Director Nikolai and Adam Stump, the Director of Finance. And after reviewing it, we're making the recommendation that the 2024 budget be approved at 4.58% for fiscal year 2024. And we discussed it in more detail at our last full meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Dallas. So we will move to the Upper Hudson report. Trustee Wei, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I do. Okay, so we had an in-person meeting on February 8th. We looked at what was going on with the governor's proposed budget for 2023, and it was not good news. She is proposing a $23.5 million reduction to current year funding, with cuts to construction and cuts to the statewide library aid. So that was not a happy discussion. If enacted, we're looking at a significant reduction to, funding opportunities that are needed by our libraries. The Ulan agreement, we had an update in that there was the term for the agreement was not correct. It's going to be a 3-year term, as it has always been. Directors have been notified of the error, and they are receiving, or probably have by now received, a corrected copy. For trustee training, it was noted that requirements for trustee training became effective January 1st, 2023. There was core leadership training, and this time it was offered in pairings, where they conducted it with the director and the board president. They did 8 of those last month, and felt pretty, pleased with the process. Member library support services continue in person and virtual, in the form of consultations that were provided to directors, staff, and/or trustees on local issues. And there was discussion about Advocacy Day, which was held on February 28th. For committee reports, it was moved, and the finance report was moved and adopted. And for old businesses, we discussed the open meetings law for committees. There was a discussion about policies that member libraries might be interested or should be looking at. There was a quest to consider how we could improve participation in Upper Hudson expeditions. I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation, but they want to see as many of us get around to as many libraries as exist within the membership. So they talked about doing that. And there was an update on rental space that's available over at the Upper Hudson Library building. That's still, we still have space. And so that topic continues. And for note, if there's anybody who's interested in knowing more, receiving updates about advocacy efforts, there was a number that was provided in my report that you all can call or text really for updates in terms of what's going on. Any questions? Okay.
Thanks very much. That was really informative.
You're welcome.
All right, so now is our overview of upcoming committee meetings. So if you're a committee chair and you know that your committee is meeting between now and our April meeting, please let us know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I raised my hand. I didn't know if you could see it.
Oh, sorry.
It's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Personnel Committee will be meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
Sorry about
Okay. Yeah, I believe that is our only committee meeting on the calendar so far. So we will move on to agenda item 6, our director's report.
Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. In February, we celebrated Black history and literature in all kinds of different ways. I want to mention a couple of notable programs. We had a History of the South End program offered in partnership with the Underground Railroad Education Center. We had a jazz concert at Arbor Hill by Project H and a Black History take-home craft kit at all locations featuring brief biographies of Black professionals, a neurosurgeon, a lawyer, electrical engineer, et cetera. They were very popular and went home with families during the month. We also always make an effort to offer exciting programs during school vacation week because we know a lot of families are looking for things to do every day. On the administration side, we, in addition to preparing for the budget proposal, we posted the Director of HR position at the end of January. And in the meantime, Assistant Director Metzger has been busy addressing our priority HR items in addition to all of her regular duties. On the important topic of safety, we posted some new signage at each branch, a behavior policy related sign stating zero tolerance for foul language, threats, and violence are not tolerated at, well, it's a zero tolerance sign that states foul language, threats, and violence are not tolerated at Albany Public Library. And we also have no weapon signs posted at all of our entrances. We're also in conjunction with the Safety Committee developing a new resource for our staff portal, which is our intranet that all staff members have access to at all public service desks and at all of their workstations so that they can easily view our safety page on that staff portal and connect with information that will help them make better referrals and have information at the point of need. We always want to maintain our ready reference resources in that way. We are also partnering with Project SafePoint to provide free Narcan for takeaway at public access dispensers. We don't expect or require staff to train on administering Narcan or deliver Narcan in the library, but we do want to offer through Project SafePoint access to Narcan for those families who have loved ones or connections who are struggling with addiction and could benefit from having it ready in their homes. We had a large number of loss of library privileges in February, I'm sorry to say. We issued 6 letters stating loss of library privileges to individuals who were threatening or violent, either verbally or physically in the library during the course of the month. In terms of administration outreach, I attended a really great Serve Albany brunch session called What White Leaders Need to Hear, which then led to an excellent follow-up meeting with the Red Bookshelf Executive Director and his staff, and I toured the facility and discussed opportunities for partnership to really do a better job of engaging Albany's youth and encourage the idea of a career in libraries. We're not just focused on getting kids engaged with programs that will educate and entertain them. We also want to show kids in the city and all of our visitors what it's like to actually work in the library in an effort to educate and better increase the pipeline of folks who are interested in a career in libraries. You never know where that seed is going to get planted and grow. So that was a really good follow-up meeting. In terms of Friends and Foundation activity, Lex Bagat is preparing for his last day, which is going to be April 4th. Really grateful to him for all of his service to the Friends and Foundation over the years. We also discussed the timeline for the Centennial mini grant application rounds for staff and the TUI Fellowship for summer of 2023. We also have a digital navigator program that's being advertised and targeted to UAlbany students. And I'm happy to say that we've gotten several applications and we're looking really good for that. I do want to draw your attention in terms of statistics to a new feature of the statistics report that I didn't include in my written report, but we're showing 2019 statistics in the report now with a new line. So it doesn't get represented in every category on our statistics. We have some data that we still need to kind of coagulate for that, but or aggregate. But I was interested in demonstrating kind of just how far we still have to go in terms of returning to a level of normalcy in foot traffic and other areas. So while the 3-year average numbers or bar graph that's represented in gray is valuable, it does showcase, or it does average together very unusual years for the library. So adding the 2019 stat line is a nice way to kind of demonstrate that contrast between where we were and where we still kind of need to go. And the rest of the report covers all the other great categories of partnership project services. And if you had any questions, having reviewed the report, happy to field those questions. Thank you.
Sarah Dallas.
Go ahead, Sarah Dallas.
I first want to compliment the APL staff for getting so much work done and so many programs and resources to the community. So thank you for all your hard work. My question has to do with the signs that you unfortunately had to put up in the buildings. And I was wondering, I'm assuming that they're only written in English. Is it appropriate to have other languages? Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dallas. The no weapons sign has iconography that's very universal, and so that one is pretty clear. The zero tolerance sign, however, is only posted in English, and we hadn't necessarily considered translating it, but it's not a bad idea to potentially add a QR code that indicates that it's available in translation, or lead directly to the translations, or modify it in some other way that that points people to the information in other languages. So thank you for that suggestion.
Other questions on this report? I really like that you added 2019 to the statistics. That's really helpful to see.
It's a little, can be a little bit of a wet blanket, but it is helpful to see, just how we compare, and it gives us something to strive for. It's good.
All right. There are no other questions. Did you want to talk about the informational memo?
Yes. The informational memo is about the city civil service fees, which have been waived for library jobs. And this is a really great move in terms of supporting our workforce goal and our diversity, equity, inclusion, and access goal. And I really want to express my gratitude on behalf of the library to the City Civil Service Commission for this unanimous decision to waive filing fees.
Arlene gave us a little party.
This is Trustee West. I just want to say that's an awesome thing to hear. That it definitely will open up a few more doors. So it's very, very exciting and encouraging to hear that civil services waived those fees for any of the library positions. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. It's great that they're listening and understand that we really want to make strides in this area. All right, so if there are no other questions for Andrea, we will move on to new business. All right. So agenda item 8.1 is our tax cap override. So just as a refresher, in new business, we have 3 resolutions. Our tax cap override, our fiscal year 24 budget, and our tax levy approval. So the tax cap override, as Bob explained last meeting, we pass this as a precaution every year, just in case there is any mathematical error with our tax cap. But the budget that we're proposing for this year is not actually overriding the tax cap. Does anyone have any questions on the process generally or on the tax cap override? Right. If there are no questions on the override, I will take a motion to approve.
This is Trustee West. I move that we approve the tax cap override.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Trustee Way, I approve. I second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the tax cap override? McCarthy, aye. Barnum,
Aye.
Dallas,
Aye.
West,
Aye.
Masinski,
Aye.
Way,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. All right, so now we will move on to our budget.
I have a question before you do the summary of the budget. I do believe that the last time that we met, and I did read the justifications. I do want to say thank you so much, Andrea, for providing those explanations and justifications. But I also thought that we said that for optics, that we would put the community relations line back in and make it used for the appropriate causes or make it used appropriately. So I'm still recommending that we put community relations back in and we use it appropriately going forward. I think that there are a lot of partnerships that we can establish and tabling at a lot of events. I'm not sure if the library has a partnership with Two Together. But there's a lot of different programs out there and community organizations that would be able to do that heavy lifting. And I'm recommending that go back into the budget and we use it appropriately and reduce those areas where we said that it would be absorbed by that amount. So it's shifting the money around, but having that line item and using it appropriately. That is definitely my recommendation. And that was actually my understanding when we left the meeting last month.
Okay, thank you, Trustee West. And with respect, I want to just remind the board that the community relations line wasn't a line that actually supported our outreach efforts. We have the programming line and the publicity and printing line that both support our outreach efforts and our, like, for example, tabling, as you mentioned, Trustee West. And those lines are actually a lot more generous than this line. So what you're seeing is basically a return to normalcy with respect to the the programming line and the publicity and printing line, and that community relations line, which went to support items that I listed in the FAQ, like the t-shirts for staff, the name badges for staff, fees paid for publicizing RFPs, food for strategic planning day. Those are all items that had been historically the repeat charges to that community relations line that are actually more appropriately covered by the lines that I listed in italics. So the office and supplies, the professional services, and the training and travel. I hear what you're saying about your perception that the consensus at the last meeting was to restore that line. I apologize for any misunderstanding that happened there, and I suppose it would be it might be appropriate to have a little further discussion. I wonder if you want to take a motion.
Yeah, so we can definitely, I'd like to take the temperature of the other trustees. I mean, we certainly could add that line back in. But we would have to either budget to use $5,000 more fund balance or make a decision on what other line to reduce. And so I want to hear from folks whether they're interested in doing that. I have an opinion, but I'll save it till I hear from others, I guess.
It's Trustee Robinson. Just really quick, I agree with Trustee West. Optically, I think that we should put the line back.
This is Trustee Dallas. And Bob, maybe you can help with this. If we pass the budget as written, can we amend the budget further in the year, or can't that be done after a public vote?
You can always amend the budget as long as you don't amend the tax levy.
So with more discussion, we can do it after the budget is passed, with keeping the same bottom line.
Yeah,
You don't have to keep the same bottom line. You just have to keep the same tax levy. Although at least as I understood the concern raised by Trustee West and Trustee Robinson, is the optics going into the vote. So I'm not sure that solves your problem.
Yeah. So the tax levy, the $7.7 million, that will be our third vote tonight. And that won't be affected whether we add community relations back in or not. For the second vote, the budget, that is like the line by line of where we're going to spend the money. So that we could amend here on the fly without affecting our tax levy.
May I offer one more piece? My concern would be that the amount that was allocated to the community relations line does not accurately represent what we dedicate to community relations in generic terms. You know, the community relations work that we do it falls under the programming line. And it is a much more generous line that really kind of underscores, you know, how our values in terms of programming and community engagement. I would also add that when we go out into the community to present the community report and talk about the budget, we do share a slide deck that kind of covers, you know, strategic plan goals and the high points of the rationale for the budget. We don't go through a line by line at that time. There certainly may be people, and I respect the fact that like Albany is a very engaged community that looks at the details. So there certainly could be individuals who comb through this line by line budget and see that and have questions about it. I don't know if it is, I wouldn't necessarily advise restoring that line at the level of 5,000 because it just is not representative of what we dedicate to those activities. That's the concern I wanted to share. Thank you.
So I have a question. Is there a compromise then in restoring the language of community relations by modifying the programming line to say programming and community relations? Would
So
that be an
that's-
option?
That would be,
That's where I was gonna go. I was gonna say the same thing. So if it's really reflected in the programming budget, then I don't know why I think that it would be advantageous to have it as a pullout, and whatever amount that of the programming budget that is in fact community engagement or community relations, that's the amount you put in that line item. You're not changing the bottom line of the budget. You're just making it a pullout. So I don't know why that would be an issue. So whether it's 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, you're just reducing the programming line, that amount that is really set aside for community relations, and it's actually being reflected in as a line item.
well, I have a question. Since community relations is embedded in programming, why can't we just change the label, knowing that that's how the money's going to be spent, that it's going to be, incorporated. Community relations is going to be incorporated in programming as opposed to pulling out a specific dollar amount at
That
this
would-
time.
Sorry, that would probably be the most elegant solution in terms of allowing us to, because it's actually harder to, I wouldn't be able to actually say at this moment on the fly what portion of the programming budget could neatly be sort of excised for a separate line item relating to this community relations concept. So potentially just changing that label is the best solution for this optics issue that you're raising. Thoughts?
Adam, from an accounting standpoint, if we were to rename a line, is that okay with you?
Absolutely, yeah. I tend to agree that that would be the easiest and most effective solution at this point. And then down the road, if we determine that more money needs to be added in that line to address additional community relations expenses, we can deal with that during the modification. But for now, just renaming that line to include that language would solve the problem and really cause no problems for me on the back end.
How does that work for you, Trustee West?
I'm processing.
Oh.
I'm processing. Trustee Robinson, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm like trying to make it make sense in my head. I just think, again, if we're going back to the optics, we definitely need to make some sort of adjustment. So if that's at this point changing the line name, I guess that's what we're gonna have to go with. Am I 100% happy about that? No, but if that's like the direction that we have to take, I guess we'll go with that.
So this is Trustee West. So are we looking at programming and community relations, or programming and community engagement, or community engagement and programming? What is the suggested language? Trustee Way?
Well, what do you recommend? You were talking about community relations. That can be community engagement. I think that by changing the title or the label, it gives you flexibility to define what it is you want to do in that arena.
I will
So
say
go ahead,
the
Mr. President.
the line last year was called community relations. It doesn't have to be that, but that's kind of the, right, if we're trying to draw a line between last year's budget and this year's budget, that would help people make the connection most clearly.
So it could be called programming, community relations, and community engagement. I mean, there's no limit to the characters we can use. I mean, one advantage of also including the words community engagement is to the fact that that is one of our strategic plan goals. So encompassing all of that in one line, like there's absolutely no problem with that. We can always find a better label and make an adjustment during the modification. But that might be a good way to just go with in terms of what we release as the recommended budget from this evening.
Okay. I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Me too.
Let me get that right. So we're saying programming, community relations, and engagement.
And community engagement.
And community engagement.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for raising that. All right. Are there other questions on the budget? No. Okay, not yet.
Would it be helpful for me to go through the FAQ or?
Yeah. Very briefly.
Sure.
Unless questions arise.
Okay, well, we already covered the community relations and publicity and printing and programming lines. Insofar, well, we didn't address the publicity and printing and programming lines, but as I stated in the FAQ, the costs associated with the centennial are why those two lines were adjusted up for fiscal 23. And most of our centennial related costs happen to be falling in FY23. So we're just adjusting those back down to the standard amounts so that we don't have to further reduce the fund balance in fiscal 24. In terms of that blue sky budget for fiscal 24, which came up last time, and by blue sky, we mean ideal or very optimal. If we're assuming no change to the current hours and services, the estimate of the budget increase that we would require to effectively address our staffing deficiencies across our branches and in our organization and cover other rising operating costs, the increase would have to be around 20%. And that's not taking into account the to be determined salary increases through the upcoming negotiation. We have ways to go in terms of our financial planning to make this progress amenable to taxpayers. This is considered a step in that. This current recommendation of 4.58% is considered a step in that direction. I also wanted to address the question of why staffing is such a constant issue for us over the last few years. And started by saying that we are, in a way, victims of our own success. The project is incredibly popular. We also have seen drastically different socioeconomic needs in the wake of the pandemic and really an unprecedented demand for library resources that doesn't necessarily mean we're seeing huge numbers of foot traffic. You can see that in the statistics. But what we are seeing are high needs, vulnerable patrons require a high level of attention and monitoring at times too, in order to keep our spaces safe for everyone, for staff and our patrons. Over the last few months, I've met with our leadership team here at the library, the branches, assistant director, to think about solutions and beyond our known issues that relate to our compensation levels, sparing process, although we're, as we said before, making some progress there. We are seeing that increased demand for services, and we are exploring our current staffing model and how to contribute to better retention in the library. One standout example that came out of those discussions was a historic fact about how we created the position of librarian 2, which is a step above the entry-level librarian position, with the expectation that these L2 positions, which are located at each branch, would take on additional duties, including training staff and supervising staff. They do a fair amount of training staff on the job. It's just that in the original envisioning of that role, they were going to be having these direct reports and managing the branch fully. So when the L2 position was created, we didn't backfill those positions, therefore basically putting them in a position of not really being able to take on all of those management duties that require off-desk, so to speak. And also time for additional programming, outreach, and staff development, that greater service or greater staffing support. So the next question I kind of drew from last meeting. Without a large-
Excuse me, Andrea, your voice is breaking up.
Okay, I'm not sure what to do about that. Slow down. So the next question, without a large budget increase to address staffing, what is the plan for improving library services and meeting strategic plan goals? It's our goal to offer a service model draft for your consideration this spring and time the release of that for the new fiscal year. We're super happy, obviously, that people are coming back to the library since 2020. But we're noticing that usage patterns have changed, and we have lots of really excellent data to look at that and to find a service model that supports the use of the libraries within Albany, the times that are really demanding those services. And obviously we want to offer the best quality of service wherever kind of services are. So the next question and final question, how am I doing in terms of sound now? Okay.
It's better. You're still coming and going a little bit, but it's definitely better than it was.
Okay, I'm gonna
Perhaps
switch.
if you turn the mics off of the people around you, maybe we're getting that echoing.
How's this microphone? I saw a thumbs up. Okay.
It's good so far.
Okay, well, this one kind of makes me feel like a rock star, so I'll use this one. Okay, so the final question, how can the proposed 4.58% increase be explained to residents? Because obviously this is a big ask in a time when a lot of people are cash strapped. There's been a lot of financial stress as a result of the pandemic. We're also just experiencing, as a community, a lot of pressure on our utility costs and other related costs running 7 branches. And everyone is seeing that in their home budgets as well. The fact is we have a new financial reality in the library. We can't continue to adopt budgets that require 6-figure fund balance usage, and we have lost money in the last couple of years. Our fund balance is at this moment healthy enough to handle these losses in the short term, which I would consider to be the next 3 to 4 years, but it is not a sustainable plan. Increasing taxes by this percentage point is an important step toward achieving our strategic plan goal of financial sustainability. And this is not the be all and end all of, this is not the solution, be all and end all solution. We also have to look at other cost cutting measures, including additional revenue opportunities, reevaluating our staffing model, and how we use our buildings are other important pieces to consider as part of what we're looking at for saving and making the most of taxpayer dollars over the next few years. I would also point out that we have increased taxes by an average of less than 1% a year over the last decade. And if it hadn't been for those pilot payments that started coming in recent years, along with the cost savings we had during the year 2020 when we were actually closed or shut down physically, we would have seen these operating losses years ago, and it would have been a problem to address years ago. The community has happily and wonderfully supported all of our tax increases under the tax cap since 2009. Very fortunate in that regard. And 81% of voters said yes to last year's 2.5% increase. The long-term goal finally is to adopt budgets where we have a balanced situation, total revenue equals total expenses, and we can get along with small tax increases each year and have a greater degree of predictability for our taxpayers so that people can plan, manage their households, and will be a little bit more stable. So this is really a stabilization budget proposal, and I really thank you for your careful consideration of it, and I would be happy to answer any other questions.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, I support this budget. I think we'll be able to maintain a high level of service in the coming year. And we've also talked about getting creative and finding creative ways to make the most out of the funds that we have. And I really trust that that is going to happen and will make our library really effective in the coming year. So I look forward to seeing those things come into reality too. Other questions or comments? I have a procedural question. So did the finance committee, or like the budget and the tax levy, I don't think we made separate motions in the finance committee for each of them.
I don't know whether you did or didn't, but you already had a change in the budget anyway, so that you just have to take a new
So we'll
motion.
just make a new motion. Okay, cool.
And the new motion is the budget with the change that was agreed to by the trustees tonight, or however you want to word that.
Right. All right, so I don't know if you could hear my aside with Bob, but since we're making a slight change to the budget, the finance committee's recommendation gets put aside, and to approve this, we'll just make a new motion and a second. So if there are no other questions, we'll have one more chance for questions after the motion, but would anyone like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 budget with the modification that the programming line be renamed Programming, Community Relations, and Community Engagement?
I'll move that I will put forward a motion to approve the budget with the change of the programming line to programming, community relation, and as you said.
And community engagement. Well done. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Robinson. Is there any further discussion on the budget motion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. McCarthy, aye. Barnum,
Aye.
Dallas,
Aye.
West,
Aye.
Masinski,
I
Way,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Right, so that brings us to our final scheduled motion, which is the tax levy. Is there any questions or discussion about the tax levy? not, I will entertain a motion.
This is trustee Dallas. I move to approve or to vote on the resolution for the tax levy of $7,710,529. $7,710,529.
Well done. Motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a second for that motion?
Trustee West, I second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the tax levy? Hearing none, I will call the roll. McCarthy, aye. Barnum,
Aye.
Dallas,
Aye.
West,
Aye.
Masinski,
Aye.
Way,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, everyone. And thank you to everyone who worked on this budget, put together this budget. Feels very good to have it done.
I would also like to express my gratitude to the board. I also recognize and appreciate that the real work begins now for me and for the staff of the library and for everyone who advocates for the library. I look forward to supporting you in this process and giving you all of the talking points you could ever hope for to support this budget. Thank you.
Yes, so this is just kind of a housekeeping note, but I believe we talked about this either during our trustee training or during a previous meeting, but at some point when we start going to neighborhood association meetings, in past years, we've invited trustees to join the neighbor association meeting where they live. I've done that in the past and I've found it enjoyable and very helpful to have trustees there supporting our library staff when they give the community report. So I hope to get a sign-up sheet for that sent around by email in between meetings after this. So keep an eye out for that. And I'm also going to be talking with the Friends and Foundation about how they can support our outreach efforts financially and with their volunteer power. So I will keep you apprised of that as those conversations happen. Again, congratulations. So that brings us to the end of our new business. Are we able to check public comment again? Okay, wonderful. And I believe we have no need for executive session. Is that correct? All right. So I believe then we are ready to take a motion to adjourn.
Trustee West, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you,
Second.
Trustee West. Thank you, Trustee Robinson. All in favor of adjourning? McCarthy, aye. Barnum,
Aye.
Dallas,
Aye.
West,
Aye.
Masinski,
Aye.
Way,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great month. We'll be in touch through some emails. But thank you so much for doing this on a snowy day virtually. It's much appreciated.